Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dollar Auction Show with Alex and Shimon. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a rainy day in DC, but listen, there's so much to talk about. There's so many happenings in the space. We absolutely are going to have a fantastic discussion today.
Yes, I'm sure. What would you like to start with?
Well, look, I would like to start with the Iran war. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
So, and Trump's visit to China.
Mm-hmm.
So, I appreciate, or one of the things that I want to stand by is that we like to call balls and strikes. And recently we've been very pro Trump's policies and so on. Look, to me, Trump's, went to China with a whole bunch of
Hey,
CEOs.
just to caveat, I haven't been pro Trump's policies. I said that we need more time to determine the outcome of this war. So, not all of Trump's policies, right? Just want to put it on the record.
Sure, fair enough. But the geopolitical moves he's been making, I think we've been saying he's making at least directionally they're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most of them are directionally right, but the Iran war is quite a big one. So I think it's just like hard to say like the policies. It's like some of his policies are great. The fact that he's pro Bitcoin is great. You know, the fact that he's pro growth of the economy is great. Some other things not so great, but we'll see.
exactly. So in order to call kind of balls and strikes, he went to China. He brought 30 top CEOs, and it really didn't get him much from it. I mean, I think it was there's a lot of spin online, and even some of the accounts that I follow that are kind of center right. But I'm disappointed that there really isn't a lot of middle ground truth out there, and I like it.
Does
I
that
want to.
surprise you, by the way?
It doesn't. It maybe disappoints me. Maybe disappoints me. I like to think that we're that. We I don't know. We try to be very centered. So long story short, I think it was a complete dud. He came back with pretty much nothing. You know what? China's going to buy some U.S. oil. It's a complete nothing burger. They didn't talk about Iran. They didn't talk about Ukraine. He brought all these CEOs.
By
And
the way,
and
how do
and
you know that they didn't talk about? Oh, you mean publicly? They didn't have a statement
publicly,
on
they
Iran.
announced that all we know is what they talked about publicly. They didn't come up.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing. And the second thing is, it's what's disappointing to me is Trump's whole stance on Iran. It's very clear that when he went in, I was really hopeful, and I think it was the right thing to do. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And I thought, okay, well, he's doing it for his legacy. He's not doing it for the midterms. But it's clear that the midterms are weighing heavily on him. And this whole thing, I'm going to bomb you, hello, bridge and power plant day. And then Pakistan told me to back off. And I'm going to bomb you. And then Pakistan told me to back off. You could do that 2 or 3 times and be believable. When you do it 6 or 7 times, you lose all credibility. And to me, he's lost all credibility. So he either has to not bomb, but he can't because of Congress and because the war is very unpopular in the States. And he keeps on threatening, well, we're gonna bomb you, here comes the thing. And then it doesn't happen. And it's like, well, because Pakistan told us to stop or Saudi Arabia told us to stop. And look, maybe that's the thing. But just from a kind of image perspective, I don't know. It's he's definitely if not already, but at a major risk of losing complete credibility. And the longer the regime in Iran holds, we were like, okay, well, the oil is gonna overflow. 14 days. They're kind of holding. So if the longer they're holding, and there are leaks that
Sorry,
talk about
just
how.
I'm just asking questions, not to undermine the points. I'm just trying to understand who said that the oil will overflow in 14 days. I heard three months.
A lot of analysts online. I
The
mean,
people
from
I
the news.
respect, who are
Yeah,
professors at like West Point and
yeah.
stuff, they're all talking about 3 months. Nobody that I respect has said like weeks.
Okay, well, fine. Let's say 3 months. We're a month one from now, so we maybe have
Three
two
months from the
months.
blockade. When was the blockade?
About a month ago.
Okay.
About a month ago. Fine. 3 months. It's just he's kind of losing. He's losing power, and they're going to Cuba, and it's like Cuba's next. It's You can't move on to a weaker country before finishing off this, or else. And Cuba is a problem. It's good to clean that up. It would be good to kind of to have an open country, an open Western-based country right on our border. And Cuba's been a problem forever. But if you picked a fight with Iran, Now, I don't know. Maybe there's something that we don't know, but it just all we know is what's public, and we've been commenting, and at least I've been saying I agree with a lot of the stuff that he's doing publicly. But now this is China and Iran right now. It's a bit. It looks like a bit of a quagmire, and I don't think we're gonna get anything good out of it. And even the leaked memos, they keep on leaking the deal, and the deal doesn't go through. Leaking the deal. These are all floaters. They're just trying to see how the public is going to react to them. So they leak it, and they're like, oh man, people don't really like it. What is this? It's like we're gonna do a ceasefire and open up the strait in order to talk for the next few weeks, for 30 days to have negotiations. No, if you're truly the strongest party, right, you go in and you say surrender or not. And I think I'll finish up with this. I think where they miscalculated is that the level of insanity of the hardliners of the IRGC. I mean, these people are truly. It's very hard to put ourselves in their heads, but from I've talked to people from the Middle East and people who know them, and we have mutual friends from there, and these people are willing to just mass kind of die because when they go to heaven, the death is not a threat for them. It's not. It's a good exit. It's a good outcome. So their whole thing is it doesn't matter how many people they sacrifice. They are religious ultra fanatics, and threatening them bridge and whatever day maybe the president who's somewhat quote unquote moderate cares, but the IRGC doesn't care. So you're negotiating against a completely illogical, completely with a party that has all of its priorities completely backwards from you. So your threats are like the sure, no problem. Let's the people will die, no problem. We don't care. Anyway, so I'm just it's been a bit disappointing for me.
Yeah. Well, I love this because I completely disagree with your disappointment, but not for the reasons you think. It's just because I had much lower expectations than you. So, like, I can't be disappointed if I have zero expectations. I agree with everything you said, factually.
Yeah.
Um, but I have to say that. So a couple of things. I have actually quite a lot to say here. That mostly I've learned from very interesting podcasts that I listen to, again, by professors and serious people that are very, very different from the news, and they're not even very different in one direction. It's not like the news say one thing and the podcast say another. It's like if you listen to the news, there's pretty much two wars going on in CNN. Iran is winning. Trump is an idiot. He didn't anticipate that they would close the Strait of Hormuz. He didn't anticipate that IRGC will hold. This undermines our credibility, and we're dying for no good cause. If you listen to Fox News, we're winning. Trump is the best. They've been wargaming the Strait of Hormuz. It's all 4D chess. Their oil is going to collapse, and everything is amazing, right? So both of these are complete, just like I don't even like dignify them with my opinion because both of these are false. But here's a few points. So, point number one is that, and this is a very serious point that I haven't heard discussed. If you do not topple the regime, getting the uranium doesn't really help you because they have enough uranium in the ground, right? So for those of us who haven't taken, I took a course in building nuclear weapons once. I mean, like a
Of
university.
course you did.
No, like how people do it and stuff. So basically, the uranium in the ground is something like 0 point something percent, and you have to get it up to 90%. So and it's very, very hard to to basically separate the good uranium from the, you basically have two types of uranium, two isotopes. And so what you have to do is like separate the isotope that is good for a nuclear bomb from the isotope that you cannot do anything with, and that's the centrifuges. And you have to just spin for a very long time until one of them separates, and then you pick it up, you build your nuclear bomb. So if you just take the enriched uranium out of the country, yes, it removes the immediate threat. So for example, from this point, they could build a nuclear weapon, let's say in 2 weeks, and launch it. I'm just making up the numbers, but it's weeks. Okay. And then
So we think.
no, it's scientifically. So, and it's really also hard to discover where you do it, because like all you need is a facility the size of a gym in a high school to like do that. The hard part is getting the uranium. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Oppenheimer, but there's a really nice part there where they basically work like a huge amount of people just to extract enough uranium, and at some point in the movie they're like, okay, how much do we have, how much do we have, how much do we have, and there's just, it's very hard to speed it up. But within 3 years you can go from 0 to 100, right? So then all the people that say like, oh, we gotta get it out, and other people say no, we gotta like back off and sign a peace deal with them, both of them, it's bullshit. So the whole idea is like, will the regime after the war is over decide to rebuild a nuclear weapon? If they decide to rebuild a nuclear weapon, we have to like, and we want to stop them, we have to send ground troops, right? So, or ground operations with the crowds or the Kurds or something. But like, the only way, and I want this on the record, the only way to remove the threat of a nuclear weapon from Iran is with boots on the ground. Only
That's
way.
yeah.
So Saddam Hussein, people thought he had like nuclear yellow cake, whatever. They had to like conquer Baghdad. That's the only way. Okay. Now I don't think there's willingness to do that. So that's point number one. It's like, I think the world has conceded the fact that if Iran wants a nuclear weapon, they will get a nuclear weapon. But the other point that nobody talks about is like, we
Wait, hold on a
deter
second.
them.
Can I just ask? You're saying that the world's conceded that if they want a nuclear weapon, they're going to get it. I think that's
I think
the
so.
way
I
it's not
think so.
true.
I don't think there's political will to send boots on the ground. I just don't see it. I don't see, because the Americans are the only ones that can do it, and I just don't see anybody basically approving an
Like
Iraq war.
Europe, essentially. The European, it's Americans,
No,
European,
Europeans don't
Israelis.
care.
Yeah,
Europeans don't
Europeans
care. I
don't
have
care.
zero expectations from the Europeans, right? It could be Israel, for example. Israel just has no capability. So the Americans are the only ones that can literally do something about this, and they've chosen to not do it. But okay, this is the bad news. But what are the good news? The good news is that you can apply so much economic pressure on the regime, then you could just create huge chaos in the country. Now, this chaos does not guarantee the removal of the nuclear weapons. So, like, you could have a civil war like in Libya, and then you have the uranium, and like some terrorist group can get the uranium and build a dirty bomb. So it's like, it's a very bad scenario, but you could threaten the regime with just like, hey, nice regime you got there, too bad if we break it. Like, not replace it. I don't think we have the power to do it, but to break it, we could. Like, we could just like make their life hell. And so I think what people are saying is like, this agreement that they're working on, it's very, very bad for Israel, by the way. Israelis are panicking. But I'm just like trying objectively to analyze it.
Why? Why is? Can you touch
Well,
upon this?
because they will be able to build a nuclear weapon. And unless we have like some ability to bomb it like once it's built, but it's hard, and I don't know what capabilities like the intelligence has, but I wouldn't, let's just say, I wouldn't bank on the fact that Israel can stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. But what I do think, the rational thing, and I think the Iranians are very rational. You're right that like death is good for them, but like, given the fact that death is good for you, you still have choices. For example, you want to increase your power, uh,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, even if you prefer to die, even if you have no problem dying, you would prefer to have more power than less power, right? So if you imagine the US as having like a knob that can control their power, which we absolutely do, right? Like, the more sanctions we do, the more, there's many things we can do that reduces their power. Then they start thinking like, should we enrich the uranium? Should we, and so then I think the optimistic scenario, which I don't know what are the odds, but the optimistic scenario goes like this. You sign an agreement that somehow neutralizes the uranium, like at least so you can sell it to the people. So either you take it out of the country, or you put it in a place in Iran that's like Guantanamo Bay, that's like controlled by some international force, but that international force cannot remove it. For example, you don't have like a landing strip. There's many ways you can do. But the point is, you basically say, okay, this threat has been neutralized, so this uranium will not be used for nuclear weapons. We reduce all the sanctions, we remove all the sanctions, the economy of Iran starts growing, and then the incentive to develop nuclear weapon goes to zero. And why is that? Because 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 ballistic missiles do the same damage as like one nuclear weapon, and that's what they've learned in this war, that they can like overwhelm the air defenses. So uh why give up all the money through like accepting sanctions if you can just like say, okay, we'll just like keep building the missiles, and that's as good as a nuclear weapon, and one day we can also have a nuclear weapon. It just doesn't have to be now. So that's the optimistic scenario. It screws Israel big time. So I just texted my wife. I'm like, look, like the way things are going, I think it's like really bad for Israel, really good for the economy. And the thing is, look at the stock markets. Like, I don't listen to what people say, I listen to the markets, right? And I think because the smart money is betting on the markets, insider trading is happening in the markets. So the market is very optimistic. You cannot deny the fact that the market is optimistic. I don't know if it's about Iran or about China, but the market is optimistic, right?
Can you talk a little bit about why it's bad for Israel? You think, well, if you're
Well,
saying that,
because they could push a button and kill my mother.
no, no, hold on a second, but you're saying they're not going to go for a nuclear weapon
No, no,
because they're
I'm saying
using the
with
ballistics.
the agreement that we'll sign, right? They will still have the option to have no sanctions. Their economy keeps growing. The regime is more powerful than ever, and they have a button that can kill my mother. Now, it's not also as simple as that, because if they kill my mother, they will wipe out Tehran from the face of the earth. And so it's always like wars are never black and white. I was just like listening to lots of documentaries about like World War II and World War One, and it's never like, it's not like Germany was erased out of the face
Yeah.
of the earth, right? And it's like, it's always like in a war, what you try to do is you try to improve your position, right, versus where it was before. Now, is the US position better now than it was a year ago? Of course. I think it's so good. It's so good that we did the war. It's good that we're like showing that we can use the military. It's good that we can inflict damage on other people, right? I think we'll get Cuba. So
No, well,
so I'm
Cuba is
optimistic.
easy. Cuba is easy.
I know, but I'm saying I'm optimistic. If you had like a scoreboard of the situation, right? The situation is better now than it was before. And by the way, you could say that even Israel's situation is better now than it was before, even though it's bad, right? It's bad because it's threatened by all these ballistic missiles and stuff, but it's better. Like, only now we understand what a terrible situation was October 6th, before October 7th happened. It was like terrible. You could invade Israel from all sides and do all these things. So now Israel is in a much better place. Now, is it good or is it perfect? Of course not. It's a bad agreement. It's not perfect, and I would love to get boots on the ground there, but there's just no political will to do it. So I just don't waste my bandwidth on that. Now, that's what I have to say about Iran, which is like, it sucks, but the world sucks and people are stupid. That's the other thing. Like, people are stupid. We live in a democracy where most of the people, by definition, are stupid, and they're the ones who vote. And so, like, your range is very limited. Now, the thing, for example, again, in the World War II documentary, it's like Pearl Harbor is the only thing that let the American public to like agree to go to war. There were terrible things happening in 1940 all across Europe, and the Americans didn't care. So it's like only when America was attacked on its own soil, then so of course, if Iran launches a missile, right, and like 200 people die in Washington D.C.,
Well,
I
that's
guess you
different.
will get boots on the ground, right, and,
No,
and
for
just remove
sure.
the regime. So they're very smart. I give them credit. They're very smart. They like play this game of like, basically what happened is Sinwar jumped the gun and basically fucked Iran big time, because like they had all this plan but it wasn't quite ready, and then it was rushed, and then Iran started losing, and now they're trying to win a little bit more, but Iran is much 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 worse off now than on October 6th, 2023. So that those are
You
my
think
thoughts.
Iran
And
is
before
worse
I
off?
tell you about China, I want to hear your reaction to what I said.
I don't know if Iran is worse. That
Why do you think Iran is not worse? It's objectively worse on so many dimensions.
because the regime withstood a major attack by us. We
Yeah, so what?
essentially, I'm telling you, so we essentially backed off. They're going to clamp down even harder. They're going to
What
have
what do you mean
even,
even harder? Harder than killing 30,000 of their own
yeah,
people?
yes, yes, yes. Of course, you can go North Korea, right? They're going to have now the case for nuclear weapon. You can have more hardliners come in. Uh, you know, um, so
That's
there
one
are.
scenario. Another scenario is they get so spooked by the fact by all the destruction and by how much their people hate them that they relax and they open up and it becomes like Gorbachev and the regime falls. I see 50-50. Like I don't know which way it will go. I agree that it's a possibility what
I
you're
wish
saying,
it was like that.
but it's not the only possibility. You might think it's 90-10. So 90%
Probably.
they crack down, 10% they reform. I think it's 50-50. We can leave it there, right? We don't know what the future will bring. But people say just like the war in Afghanistan toppled the USSR, the war in Gaza could topple the regime in Iran. It will just take a few years. So that it could happen.
Well, yes, but there's no political will. We're the only country
No, no,
attacked.
no. I'm saying internally. Like the
Oh,
USSR collapsed not because someone attacked it.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant Gaza. Look, but the USSR had sane people who just wanted kind of power, but people didn't want to die. The Iranian regime wants to die,
No,
or
I don't think the Iranian regime wants
well,
to.
I should say
The
death.
Iranian regime wants to increase its regional and global influence and doesn't mind dying. It's very different.
I think that the hardliners and the IRGC don't care if people of them die. Ultimately, they are religious fanatics,
I agree that they
and
don't care
that's
if
the
they die,
problem.
but within the context where you don't care if you die, you have options. Option one gets you more regional power. Option B gets you less regional power. You choose option one. And that's exactly the game that we're playing. We're gonna say, okay, give up like your kinetic regional power and we'll give you monetary regional power. That's what's gonna happen over the next few years. It's gonna be like a negotiation of like of like within this new framework. They will want to dominate the Middle East and grow their economy. We will say, no, you have to choose. Either you grow your economy and back off from threatening the Middle East, or you threaten the Middle East and we keep choking you. That's what's happening, right? So we basically say, if you want us to release the sanctions, the blockade on Hormuz is a sanction. Forget about whether they'll they can dump the oil. They've been dumping oil in the ground. They've been dumping oil in the ocean. So it's like, it's a form of sanction. It's money. At the end of the day, it's money. Nobody's getting killed currently. So, like, we basically say, we're taking your money. Do you want us to give it back? Back off with your threats. That's the summary of the current situation.
I'm I wish that the world evolves, or the things in the world evolve exactly the way you're talking about. I'm nervous that it's not 50-50. I'm nervous that it's 90-10. I'm nervous that the Iranians are actually are I should say I'm fairly convinced that they are fanatics and that they don't care about death. I know maybe some people want power, the president and others, but the IRGC, it's a matter of pride, and I don't think they care if they go down in flames, but others go down with them. I think it's absolutely a good outcome for them. And in that case, when it's a good outcome for them, then what do you do? You know what I mean?
But no, but this is, I think this is your mistake. You're
Okay.
just like, everything you just said is framed as binary, all or nothing, right?
So completely,
Either
I
we die
agree.
and everybody else dies with us, or we don't. And because we don't care to die, we'll choose to die. It's not like that. It's like, we don't mind dying, but given the fact that we don't mind dying, do we want to like bomb the UAE now? Or do we not want to bomb the UAE? What's better for us, right?
Who
They have an
cares?
ideology. It's like the USSR, right? The difference between Iran and North Korea, and I'm very happy we're having this conversation because this is exactly the conversation that nobody's having. So, like, if you think about like the difference between Iran and North Korea, you can lump the USSR and Iran on one side and North Korea on the other side. North Korea doesn't want to convert anyone to their ideology. Okay, both the USSR and Iran have this idea that the world is a better place if it adopts their ideology. So the USSR thought the world is a better place if everybody's communist. Iran, the core belief of IRGC is that the more of the world is controlled by Islam, the better it is. That's literally what's written in the
Yeah,
Quran,
yeah.
right? So if now you give them a choice, forget about dying, but like option one, you control more of the world. Option B, you control less of the world. Their religious duty is to choose option one. And then if you put a very hard dilemma on them, it's like, okay, you can control a lot of the world, at 50% control, or you can control less of the world at 100% control, which is basically by removing the uranium, by hurting their missiles, by all of these things. It's basically you can't control it totally. You can just influence, but you can't like threaten with a gun. It's like they had a gun to someone's head, and now you say, okay, we'll take the gun, we'll give you a knife, and you have to stand 10 feet away. Okay, so you still can run towards that other person with the knife, but it's a weaker threat than holding a gun to their head. So
I
that's
think that
exactly what
I
happened.
think they're gonna still. So to me, I take your point. It has a lot of logic, and I take it. I think it's still, to me, it's much more binary. You're right. I think that I just think that your points are, again, are valid, are great, a little bit more theoretical. I think when it comes down to it in practical terms, when you're the first of all, there are factions that are fighting within Iran, specifically called the president and foreign minister versus the IRGC. IRGC wants total control, and they're hardliners. They think that the Ayatollah was not hardline enough because he had a fatwa, which is a religious edict against creating a nuclear weapon. So they're going to say these guys attack us. We want a nuclear weapon. I don't care what you say. You can say we can shoot the ballistics. No, we want a nuclear weapon because this is going to happen again. I think they're going to force the binary decision because once Iran starts going after the nuclear weapon, then there has to be an attack. I don't think the
Not
war is.
necessarily.
I don't
Not
think the
necessarily.
war. I don't
I
agree
think
to
the
the
world will
war.
accept a nuclear Iran. I actually think if you had to tell me, hey, Shimon, like 50 years from now, will Iran have a nuclear weapon or not? I could see a scenario under which they have a nuclear weapon and still everything's okay.
I could. Well, yes, I could
Like
see
they
that
don't launch
scenario.
it. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's one thing like to have a nuclear weapon, it's another thing to launch the nuclear weapon. So like what will happen if they have a nuclear? Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. North Korea has a nuclear weapon. Both really bad regimes.
No, no, I know, but they're very different. Pakistan doesn't have. Pakistan, North Korea doesn't want to convert the world right
The
into.
USSR had nuclear weapons.
I understand, but the USSR weren't religious fanatics. They didn't care about. They cared about dying. The Islamists and IGC don't care about dying. That's the
I
thing.
don't think. Okay, that's fair. It's a fair disagreement. I don't. Do you think that if they have a nuclear weapon, they'll just launch it willy nilly?
I don't think they'll launch it willy nilly, but I think they will use because it's not. I think we have this nuclear weapon. You can have small modular nuclear weapons, small like suitcase nukes. So you can knock out internet cables underwater. You
Okay, let
can.
me ask you because I really want to move to China. So I will
Yeah.
just ask you a question and I want comment. Let's say the worst case scenario happens. So Trump chickens out, the IRGC takes over completely the country, and they build like 20 nuclear weapons. Okay, what are you afraid of then?
They're gonna launch a nuke at Israel.
Launch a nuke at Israel. Okay, I don't think it's gonna happen because like the retaliations will annihilate them, and I think their regime survival is more important to them than erasing Israel.
Fair enough. Agree to disagree.
Awesome. No,
What
it's
do you
great.
have to say?
And hey, listeners, viewers, tell us what you think. Nothing is objective, and we don't know what's going to happen. So, like, nobody predicted the collapse of the USSR, by the way. So it's really, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. Now, uh, China. So the
China,
only thing I'll say about China is again,
China,
look at the
China,
markets.
China.
I look at the markets. I think it was very good. The trip was very good in the
You think it was
sense
very good?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's very good.
Okay.
And also, some professors that I listen to also think the trip was very good. It was very good because it's just de escalating the tension. So it's de escalating the tension on tariffs, on schmariffs, on all of these things. Nvidia is going to sell them some
No,
stuff.
but hold on a second. Hold on a second. Sorry, sorry. I know I interrupted. Just one thing. Nvidia is not going to sell them shit because Trump said Nvidia could sell them chips, and she said, "Thank you, no, thank you. We have our own chips that we're making." That's the issue.
Have you looked at the stock of Nvidia since the trip?
For sure, I have, but it has nothing with China.
Okay, but I mean,
They
I'm just
destroyed
saying, like,
earnings and they guided up.
I'm looking at the markets. If there was a problem looming, the markets would go down. The markets have been going only up since the China trip. And so my point is, regardless of the public statements, regardless of any particular company or whatever, I think things are moving in the right direction with China. And I think what's going to happen in 5 years from now, which is the time we need to build our chip building capacity. Basically, if I had to guess what was agreed in this trip, was Trump said hey, give me a break for 5 years, then you can take Taiwan. I'll take like my hemisphere, you take your hemisphere. I just need If you attack Taiwan before I can manufacture my chips, I'm gonna have to fuck you over. But if you don't attack Taiwan, but if I already have my chip building abilities, then do whatever you want with Taiwan. That's what I think they agreed.
But so what do you think about Taiwan? You said you can do whatever you want. Do you think it's okay for us to let go of Taiwan? Because Trump publicly is saying he's standing behind Taiwan.
Yeah, I think it's okay once we can manufacture our own chips. I don't think it's worth, and again, politically, forget about what I think. I don't think, I think now, if they attack Taiwan, it will be very easy to sell to people like, hey, they're going to get AGI, artificial general intelligence, before us, and they're going to dominate all the robots and like Terminator scenario. So we have to defend Taiwan, right? But if we can make the chips on our shores and then they attack Taiwan, I don't think the public is going to give a shit. The US public.
No, U.S. public, of course, not going to care. I don't know. The Taiwan, yeah, Taiwan is an issue. But
What
then
people
we're
need to understand is that international, like geopolitics, it's always
raw power.
bad choices.
Yeah.
You always have bad choices. Why? Because like it's like, imagine, it's just like normal politics, right? If you think of like where you have the Republicans versus the Democrats, the people that will rise to the top of the party by the time you become the nominee, and on both sides, you're already like, you owe so many favors to so many people that got you there, that as a voter you have two bad choices. And you could argue that one is much worse than the other, or that both of them are close. So it's the same in the geopolitics. It's like you could have two bad choices, and it's like it could be like, kind of, I don't care, or like, oh my god, we have to do this because it's so much worse, and if the other thing happens. But like, there's no good choices. I mean, because people are idiots, and they're like, I mean, look, if nobody fought each other, we could all have an amazing life. But people still fight each other. And so like it sucks. It's the same with countries. If everybody just respected everybody else's borders and didn't do shenanigans, our world would be much better. But guess what? They're still invading other countries. Russia's invading Ukraine.
Look,
It's like, what the fuck? But that's just the situation. We have to accept the situation as it is, not as we would want it
no,
to.
for sure.
Of course, I would love to defend Taiwan because I hate communism and China are communists and fuck them. But like, I don't decide.
Look, I think there's another element of this is that the world has always been decided by raw power. Even if you think about just traditional roles like evolutionary of men, the fighters, they're going out there. How do men get along, right? So we let's say hang out as boys. Forget like the current age. Traditionally, how do we get along? You hang out as boys and you play as boys. And then the testosterone kicks in, your ego kicks in, you start talking shit or you start talking smack, I can run faster, you jump faster, you this and that and that. How are you shown where the boundary is when you're with boys? You get your ass beat. You get in a fight, you get your ass beat. Like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't speak so much, or I need to get stronger, and then I can exert more power. So the power, especially with men, and I don't want to get into this feminist BS. Like men have been the warriors traditionally. Men have gone out and kind of fought wars. Raw power. Nothing's wrong with women. We love women. Women bring their own magic to the world, and they bring life. That's the most power that can ever happen. But men, go out and fight these and kind of and fight. So raw power has always been the controlling boundary of humanity. It's like you get too far out of line, there's raw power, there's death, there's destruction, there is whatever. There's a rebuild of a new system. So so I think wars are kind of a natural way for humanity to find the right path. We're a violent species, but so are monkeys. It's like there are many animals that are exactly like this too, and the whole animal kingdom, the alpha male, the alpha wolf, the alpha lion, the alpha this, the alpha female, the males dance for them. I forgot.
And by the way, the alpha situation, as someone who studied biology, right, it has been chosen by natural selection, this whole kind of system of governance, because it's more efficient than otherwise. Because imagine if people would always fight, and they would have factions, and there wouldn't be like one guy that decides everything, then you will get eaten by the other pack that has one guy that decides everything. So it's like a stable equilibrium, right? It's
Yeah,
just like with kings and stuff like that. We spoke about that. Who was the king? It was like a bunch of nobles came together and they said, you have a castle, I have a castle. Let's make a pact that if my castle is attacked, you come to help me. If your castle is attacked, I come to help you. Once you have 20 castles, what happens if two of them disagree? So then they're like, okay, we can either like fight each other, or we can appoint one of the castle guys to just arbitrate, and that's the king. And so, and then the king cannot do whatever he wants, because if enough of the castle owners, if enough of
Yeah.
their like elites think that they're not doing a good job, they're going to kill them. And it's happened many times in history.
Off with it happened many times. It happened very, 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 very many times
Yeah,
throughout history. In fact, when you're king, you're hunted constantly because
yeah,
the God for you don't do something right. You don't lead in the right way. There's no voting you out. You just die.
yeah.
They put
And by the way, fun fact: the Ottoman Empire, and I want to move to some economic data after this, but the Ottoman Empire, the way an emperor, or the however it was called, the Khalif, or I don't remember the name, but the Sultan, the way the Sultan was
was bad.
selected, do you know how?
No.
All the Sultan's kids fight each other to the death. Whoever survives becomes the new Sultan.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
It's crazy.
And that lasted 500 years, dominated like half of Europe.
Crazy.
It's insane. It's like, can you imagine being in a family where it's like literally either kill or be killed by your brothers?
Listen, but I cannot imagine. I think it's barbaric. But and we should move on to the economic data. But if you're crude about it and you think like to become a king, to make these decisions to protect your kingdom, you have to be ruthless.
Yeah, that was the idea. That's
Yeah.
exactly why they did it this way, because they're like, everybody supported the system, because they're like, how are we going to choose which brother is best? It's like the idea is like, you can either pick the oldest, or you need to pick something else. And so they said, instead of picking the oldest, what if the youngest kills the oldest? We accept it as a legitimate thing. Versus in Europe, they didn't accept it as a legitimate thing,
Yeah.
right? If there it was much more hereditary. So it's fascinating. And by the way, the Ottomans lost. So like the European system of just like seniority, just like the oldest guy gets everything.
Well, I'm not
It's
sure
better.
that's necessarily why the Ottomans lost, but I will say, look, and I could be wrong. Last point, let me just make this seems barbaric, but it continues to this day, and we very much live the modern version of it. When we think about a Navy SEAL, who are Navy SEALs? You think they're like nice, plush, teddy bears that you can just no. These are men with Delta Force, so our most elite soldiers who we all look up to. It's all nice when they're afterwards and they're on TV. They have these great interviews. These are killers. These are men who have tasted blood. They've seen it. They've taken lives. It's a different mindset to be able to. I don't think I would be able to do it unless maybe somebody's attacking the family and I would have to out of self defense. But that's a different mindset. It's a mindset that I don't have. I am not cut off for this. For example, I just know it. But they are, and so it makes sense to say if you're a ruler and you're gonna guide your people through war and you're gonna be responsible. By the way, same we have in the military, right? The more you get into elite units, all of this DI, SHMEI, all this shit goes out the window. Because if you don't perform your job, your people will die. So every single person has to be lethal and ruthless in their job. Okay, if you're a king and you are governing, hundreds of thousands of people, a lot of lives are at risk if you can't make ruthless, quick, and sometimes very, very kind of bloody decisions. And that's I don't know. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's
Okay.
go
We're
to
38 minutes in. I want to talk about a magical concept. It's a rabbit hole that I went deep into, and that I haven't been thinking enough about, because it's a leftist usually metric, but I'm fascinated by it. And that metric is called nominal GDP. What do you think about nominal GDP, Alex?
well, it's interesting.
Everybody's talking about real GDP. Everybody's talking about interest rates. So for our listeners, right? Like the nominal GDP is just the dollar value of your GDP, and the whole idea is like you can have high inflation and high interest rates, and then basically it's not good, or you can have low inflation and low interest rates and it's better. But the nominal GDP can be the same in both scenarios, right? So you can have like a high nominal GDP with high inflation, or you can have a high nominal GDP with low inflation, and they have different.
Well, it just shows that the driver of GDP is it inflation or is it actual productivity? Look,
Exactly. That's a much better way to put it. GDP, the real GDP, right, is no.
It's supposed to measure productivity, real GDP, versus and take out inflation.
The real GDP is productivity plus money printing. Minus money. It's productivity minus money printing. And the
more or
nominal
less.
GDP is just like money printing plus productivity. So that's the difference. Do you subtract the
More or less, I agree. There's some funny for our listeners. There's some funny ways of measuring CPI versus money printing, and one is like 4%, and the other is
Yeah,
eight
I'm
percent.
just trying to
But
be very, very high
more,
level.
yes, yeah.
So, what is my interesting insight, and how does it uh, matter? Why does it matter? Why the fuck do we care? So, if you look at the nominal GDP growth rate since 2019, it's a flat line. It's been super stable. So it's like around 6%. Now it bounces around, right? But the point is there's no trend. There's no, like, yeah, after COVID, it went.
For our listeners, Shimon took the first derivative of
Yeah, like the change of GDP. So
zero.
it's like I don't want to tell you like, oh, in January we made $20 trillion and in February $21 trillion. I'm just looking at the difference, right, of how much growth, but in dollar terms, not in real, not in purchasing power, but just in dollar terms. And so like if I look at the line, and I'm sorry I can't share the screen here, but I use Gemini, and it's basically very flat. So it's like in 2019 it was like around 5%. 2020 it fell to negative. 2021 it went to 13%. And then since 2022, it's stable at 5%, right? So Trump took office in 2025. It was like 7%. Then it fell down because of the tariffs to 1%. Then it bounced again to 7%. Now we're back to 5%. So it's basically been at 5% nominal GDP forever, call it. And I also looked back. I looked back into, like, if you look at it, I literally have a chart here that goes back to 1980 or whatever. And it's like, yeah, in the 70s, it was like 12%. But apart from that, it's pretty much stable at 5. It's literally a flat line.
Okay,
Again,
what's the
great
point?
financial crisis goes down. With COVID, it went down. After COVID, it went up. What's my point? They basically want to keep it at 5%, right? So this is like if it goes above 5%, they cut the money supply, and if it goes below 5%, they increase the money supply. And that is a fascinating thing to me because that's where the retirement calculators come from, right? So if you think of like you can withdraw 4% or 5%, and it depends again because of the volatility, right? You can have more margin of safety or less, but basically you can invest in anything, literally anything you invest in will grow at 5% year over year. Now, if you invest in really good things, it grows at 10%. If you invest in really bad things, it goes at, you can lose money. But like the average is 5%. And that just makes me feel very good in the sense that, Bitcoin, stock market, all of that is like growing at 10%. But it's not crazy to me. So like I thought, oh, to get 10%, you have to be like amazing, right? No, to get to 10% yield, you only have to do double literally the average that happens always. Like if you compare a crabbing company here at the Chesapeake Bay that all they do is like pick crabs from the bay, sell them at the market, they grow at 5% nominally on average.
Okay,
How crazy is that? And that's why people can withdraw 4% of their portfolio and retire, and it will work.
you're basically saying on average everything grows at 5% nominally.
Nominal, yes. But that also means that you can grow at 10% easily if you build a self-driving car company or if you make chips that do AI. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
but
it's
what's
like,
the point? Is the point that you can? This is why you can retire 4% and you can just pull money out, but your money becomes less and less. It's worth less and less. So
well,
maybe I don't
no.
understand the point
Yeah,
fully.
so then the question becomes like, okay, you can outperform it, but like inflation is not 5%. I think it's a little bit less. So like because I think definitely you can make money like just by investing in random stuff. And again, I don't even care if you do. Let's say you invest in, I don't know if there's an ETF that invests in everything that
Well,
just
yeah,
gives
of
you the
course, the
GDP.
S&P 500.
No,
That's
no,
what
S&P 500 is stocks. But imagine you had an ETF that did like stocks and bonds and real estate and metals and commodities and everything, just like perfect diversification across everything. What I'm saying is that the money grows at 5% nominally, and inflation is less than 5%. It's maybe like 2 when times are good and 3 when times are bad and
yeah.
like 8 when there's COVID, but then they shrink it. But my point is, that's a very interesting, and then you can say, okay, can I outperform by 2x the just like average of everything? Hell yeah. I mean, what are we doing if we're not outperforming by 2x the average? Like if you look at the average student Can you be better by 2x than the average student? Of course you can, like you specifically. But if you look at people like bears and naysayers and people that say that the stock market is overheated, they will say, "Oh no, this can't go on. We're overheating." It's like, how are we overheating? It's like 7, 8 companies driving the whole stock market, and these companies are doing like amazing things that are far from average. So like, of course, they're growing really nicely. Like I thought when I went to business school, I really thought it's 2%. It's not 5%. Like if you had to ask me, like, what's the growth rate of the just average economy or whatever, I would say 2%. I would say it's just the population growth or productivity growth or whatever. But no, it's actually 5%. And so I don't know. That's my insight. Maybe you think it doesn't matter because why do you think it doesn't? I mean, I don't know. What do you have? What insights do you have?
I mean, look, this is like you. This is kind of like Deadwood. A lot of, maybe the local crab shop is growing at 5%, but a lot of companies in the S&P are growing at less than that. They're just kind of growing at monetary inflation or less. In fact, I
But a
would
lot are
say
growing by more, and that's why the S&P gives you 10%.
only the tech companies, which is our thesis originally, only
Yeah,
the innovative companies. Everyone else is Deadwood. So, and they're actually kind of growing at less. They're growing at some sort of nominal 2 or 3% rate and not really expanding. So, look, it's an interesting observation, I would say. I don't know if it strikes me as it struck you, because
I didn't say it's special or anything. I just thought it's very interesting. It's
it is
interesting
very
to me
interesting. Yeah.
that it's stable at 5%. Recessions, money printing, whatever, whatever, whatever. You can bet that the dollar amount will grow by 5%
You
year
can
over
bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be
year.
sun.
5%.
Besant, Besant, I love you, Besant.
So anyway, that's I found that to be interesting. Another thing that I found to be interesting is that and I don't know if we spoke about this, but I want to put it on the record. People that say that the NASDAQ is unsustainable don't know what they're talking about, because the price to earnings is actually very much in line of previous. Basically, the earnings are growing really fast, and unless you can show me how Anthropic gets less money and how SpaceX gets less money a year from now than today, unless you have that scenario, and not a year from now, but like on average, like for a very long time, gets less money, then shut the fuck up, because we're not overvalued.
I think this has to be the end of the episode. Like, this is just such a nice punchline. Unless you can show me SpaceX is gonna grow. Oh, SpaceX. There'll be a dump on SpaceX. By the way, there's a huge
But forget
unlock of
about
it.
the dump. It's more than the railroad.
I know, but hold on. What I was gonna say is no. What I was gonna say is we're revolutionizing space. It's like, forget this planet, the
Yeah,
TAM of Mars and
exactly.
our nearby planetary system. It's like, what is the TAM of that? How many trillions of dollars? 100 billion trillion. Like, it's these. They were getting into numbers that sound funny. Like, but it's gonna happen. It's like, I completely agree with you. This is the interesting part. Is like, how much more value can we bring? Well, we discover whatever on Mars, and we have these things on Mars, and then we have this, we have city states on Mars. Like, there's just so many possibilities, so many new possibilities. Of course, everything is going to grow, and we're going to have more value.
I know. And also, like, it's just like people are so close-minded. I love this guy that basically says, don't listen to bear in terms of people who are pessimistic about stock markets. Don't listen to bears because they're retarded. That's it. Like,
Because
because they're retarded. Because objectively the stock market goes up over time. So any person who tells you that we're not
they're
gonna,
just short-term traders.
I don't know. I mean, people say, "Oh, the Nasdaq took 20 years to recover from the peak of 2000." It's like, first of all, yeah, if you put all your money on the absolute day, then you waited for 20 years. Second of all, so if you put it like a year before, it's like 5 years to recover. And guess what? It's not 5 years. It didn't go to zero, stay at zero for 5 years, and then went back. It was like down, 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 and down, then up, 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 up. So you can sell along the way. And the other thing I'll say is, like, people are so I really recommend listen to the podcast of Gavin. I think he's
Newsom.
no, Gavin Baker. Basically, Invest Like the Best, about data centers in space.
Oh yeah.
It's so fascinating. So he said he made something. He made me think about something. So he said, when most people think about a data center in space, they think of a Pentagon or a Walmart kind of block that just is roaming around space. But no, you have to think of an NVIDIA rack that's like flat. It has these wings of solar panels. They're pointing, you can know exactly where they will point, so they always get sun, perfect cooling because it's like space, and they connect to each other not through wires but through lasers. So you can launch like an arbitrary amount of them. You can launch 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million of these guys, and they all talk to each other through lasers, and each of them has these wings, and you can send like a satellite with like 10 of them that shoot in all different directions, and you know exactly where they're going to go because it's space, it's a vacuum. You can literally, from the moment it leaves Earth, you know exactly where it will end up. How can you not be bullish about this?
Of
And
course.
forget, maybe SpaceX doesn't do it, maybe Amazon does it, like Blue Origin, maybe there'll be a new company. You know, the first car company wasn't necessarily the one that took over the industry, but how can you
It
be
was
bearish
Toyota.
about technology? And then when you have it, it's so cheap then because it sits there forever and it operates for free and it beams its insights
And it
down
has
to
infinite
a place.
cooling.
Yeah, infinite cool. You have zero cost to operate it. It doesn't destroy because again, it's a vacuum. There's no wear and tear. Nothing hits it. There's no dust. How can people be bearish? Now,
Well,
is
things could
SpaceX
hit.
overvalued on the IPO? Maybe. I don't care. That's why I don't invest in individual stocks. But like, will the NASDAQ be much, much higher 20 years from now? Of course it will. Of course, 100%. So, okay, even if you don't like Bitcoin, then put like 10% in Bitcoin, 90% in NASDAQ. Not investment advice, just my feverish musings. But like, seriously, how can people be bearish? Even if you think it's a little bit
I
overvalued.
completely agree. I
What,
completely
how should
agree.
I act on this information? Should I like sell my NASDAQ holdings because it's a bit overvalued and wait for it to go down? What if it doesn't go down? What if we have robots now that walk all over and do a bunch of stuff? So it's like, I don't know. I'm just like, I hate listening to pessimists.
Michael Berry. That's what I say.
Uh,
All right. On this note, my friend, this is a really good episode. I really,
I
I,
really
I
think it's a
like.
good episode. I'm trying to bring kind of new things because I think that when we were just focusing on Bitcoin, it was more like, okay, yeah, like we're repeating ourselves and also like we don't add a lot of value. But like I've been hearing feedback from people that the recent episodes really add value to
Good.
them. Even if they disagree with us, it makes them think. So like that's our goal, guys, to make you think.
Think, people, think. All right, Shimon. Well, I'll probably see you later today for some delicious pizza.
Yes, don't dox us because like I don't want to be kidnapped. No, this is not France. This is Washington, D.C.
See you
All right,
later,
everybody.
alligator.
Have a great weekend.